So this game really fascinated me before. Very similar to PT or, well, yeah, I guess I say PT, even though this is before. So it's all about the illusion of choice, right? It's kind of a parody of that, of the illusion that games give us about choice. So we can either do choice A, choice B. Technically, a game will force you to go along the path of choice A, but by taking choice B, you feel like you're going off script, so to speak. Doing something that the developers didn't intend, but by doing this game, it kind of gives you all these options to complete the game. But in many of these cases, you feel like you're breaking the script, you're doing something against the grain, against the game, but in reality, it's all been accounted for. So it's all a false illusion, which really, really fascinates me. I dig it. So I have some other endings to try to get. So let me go ahead and do it. So I've done a few. There was a part with a crane that I got to, and I did one thing, but there was another path I could have
This
done.
is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Or did he? So this is the very beginning of the game.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
So sometimes his
No matter
phone
how
rings.
hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
That doesn't work. Alright, so there's a crouch button. Then I can go to this window.
At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. So, now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet?
No.
Ah, then in that case we'll continue. But now, here comes the real question. What do you think would have happened if you had told me that you wanted this to stop? Do you think it would have been particularly different? Would I have taken the same idea but rephrased it superficially to fit that answer? Perhaps you never would even have thought of it if I hadn't brought up the issue in the first place. Oh, now think about it. Will it be worth it for you to restart and then come back here just to do the other option? Clearly, this whole gag takes some time. What if the other option is even longer? How long will you spend in total just to have heard all the narration? Oh, and this is rich. Perhaps you've just played the other option, and now you've come to see what happens in this one. So, what do you think? Which choice was the better one? Imagine if you had selected Continue on your first playthrough, how tantalizing it would be not knowing what happens when you pick the other option. Indeed, you are one of the lucky ones. Though if the other option is really miserable to listen to, then perhaps you're not. In fact, I'm just going to say that no one who's listening to this is lucky. Well now, I've built up the other options so much that I'm going to stop talking and leave you to your decision whether to come back here, continue with the game, or just sit in this spot forever and ever. Cheers.
So look at that. They took into account a glitch where you walk through the walls. Are you sick of this gag? I am not. I'll continue, because I'm just curious to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. It's infinitely fascinating to me. So there is a crouch button. I didn't even know that. I just press Control. So that's a new button. Are you sick of this gag? I am not. So I guess he's not going to talk. He did say cheers. It seems I can't pick no. I guess I'm forced to click yes, because now it won't let me do anything. So I actually can't do anything here. I'm going to have to restart and go with the other option and see what happens.
Stanley decided to go to the meeting room to check on his co-workers. He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others, so the thought of total solitude was terrifying to him. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers. At first, Stanley assumed he'd broken the map, until he heard this narration and realized it was part of the game's design all along. He then praised the game for its insightful and witty commentary into the nature of video game structure and its examination of structural narrative tropes. So, now that you're here, what do you think? Isn't this a fun and unique place to be? Why don't we take a minute just to drink it all in? Okay, I'm over it now. What do you think? Are you sick of this gag yet?
So I click no before, but I want to click yes this time and see what happens.
Well, I don't know how to say this politely, but you could literally just hit escape and restart the game any old time you want, like right now. You could have done it just then. Now would also be an appropriate time to quit. Any of these points and so many, many more, all of them are appropriate. I'm enjoying what seems to be an internal conflict going on where you are literally unable to act on your own desires to restart the game. So, just to push the envelope, I'm going to try and make this as miserable as possible and see how long you can maintain.
Got some nice music though.
There once was a man named Stanley, who people considered so manly. But the truth must be told, he was not very old and was quite particularly gangly. What Stanley liked most was buttons. He pushed them like some kind of glutton. He did it all day in a meaningful way, but his brain had long ceased to function.
Oh boy.
Which is why he is in this parable and lives an existence quite terrible. And if you are not strong and keep playing along, you too will become quite unbearable. Yeah. you too will become quite unbearable.
I mean, at least it's soothing, right? So now this is just a test of patience to see, will he sing anything else, or will this song just loop? I gotta find when it loops. So it should loop here. So it's just a simple chord, but it loops. Oh wait, there it is. Okay, it changed. So now it's stopped. There's nothing here. Nothing has changed. So I think that's it. Alright, so in this case, I think that's just it. That's all there is to it. So I have to restart. Okay, so the other route I want to take is the part with the little lift, cargo lift. So I want to do that. So let me take that path that is taking the door on the right.
A soft wind blew outside and perhaps rain started, and if it did, it stopped shortly after. Stanley hoped that he would one day see weather.
Well, that's not happening now, is it? So it's a different narration this time, so that's interesting. Here we go.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
So I want to take the right.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
Drink it in, man.
But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
So I don't want to do that. I want to go here.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
So now instead of following that path, I'm going to take this route. I might just die.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. But in his eagerness to prove that he is in control of the story and no one gets to tell him what to do, Stanley leapt from the platform and plunged to his death. Good job, Stanley. Everyone thinks you are very powerful. Stanley decided to go to the meeting room to check on his co-workers. He never functioned well by himself and constantly needed support and guidance from others, so the thought of total solitude was terrifying to him.
So we've got a bunch of papers here.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow. Yes, this room. What a beautiful room. What a gorgeous, gorgeous room.
Indeed.
Thank goodness Stanley had taken this detour on his way to the meeting room. Life without having experienced this room was now too horrible even to consider.
He's right, you know. This is quite a lovely lounge. We got 1, 2, 3.
Yes, really, really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings. Really worth it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 chairs.
At this point, Stanley's obsession with this room bordered on creepy and reflected poorly on his overall personality. It's possible that this is why everyone left.
That's harsh. So what time is it here? It's still 11.
Stanley sat around waiting for more dialogue.
18.
But when a long time had passed and there was no more, he decided that the game was trying to send him a message.
It's a shame I can't get soda, but okay.
But at last, he'd had enough of the amazing room and took the first open door on his left to get back to business. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
So I'm trying to remember what was past this room. With the cargo. What is, I remember I took that room and I had to go back. What happens if I take the lift and go back?
Oh, well, look who's got cold feet. Sorry to break it to you, Stanley, but that lift isn't coming back.
Huh.
You'd best either get comfortable right here on this platform, or test your luck by jumping to the floor below. You know what? Looking at it now, it's not that far to the bottom floor. I bet you can make it.
I should do that, huh?
Come on. I'm sure you'll survive the jump. Don't tell me you're scared. That's not the Stanley I know. Do it! Do it! Do it! Do it! Do it! Do it! Do it!
Okay, so I'm gonna die because I'm pretty sure I can't go back here. Nope.
Whoops. Looks like I was wrong. How clumsy of me.
Oh well. So now that I remember that, going past the cargo gate gives me the room with the phone. So I need to do that. Foxon, what's up? I think I need someone to teach me the office system in AC unit because I'm stuck on one co-op mission, or should I finish the main story first? So I don't know. Everyone's different, Foxhound, but
All
the
of
way
his
I did it,
co-workers were gone. What could it
I
mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
so I don't do the campaign first. I do all the side missions first, co-op missions, you know, assassination contracts, rebuilding the theater, all that stuff. So I
When
do
Stanley
that
came
before
to
the
a set
story.
of two open, this was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop
So
by
what
the
happens
employee
is,
lounge
because I
first,
was doing all the
just to
side stuff
admire it.
first, I was able to accrue enough money or unlock certain pieces of armor and weapons and stuff to level up. So I was kind of prepared for a lot of those co-op missions. You know, depending on how you want to level yourself up, I did myself more stealth oriented, so I was able to be more stealthy and just have more powerful weapons. So I mean, I forget the specific load that I had, but
Stanley just stood there doing nothing at all.
I had
He seems to
legendary
think I have
weapons.
nothing better to do with my time than to sit around and describe every fascinating little detail of his inability to do anything. This is why Stanley and I are on such good terms.
I would just Google it, like go to GameFAQs or something, or Google and just type in AC Unity best loadout, and that'll give you a better idea of what you need. Also doing the time missions, the time skip stuff. That's definitely doing those gets you some extra loot and outfits and stuff that you need.
The lounge was sublime, a work of art. What was it about this room that called so deeply and so personally to Stanley? Its grace? Its subtle charm? No. Stanley knew it was something deeper, something darker.
So dark. But yeah, I would do that, Foxhound, and then go from there. Look at what people say about the loadouts. Is this game only on
Yes,
PC?
really worth it being
No,
here in the room.
it was on
A
PS3,
room so
Xbox
utterly
360,
captivating that
and
even
they
though
actually
all your
just announced
co-workers
last
have
week or the
mysteriously
weekend that
vanished,
they're re-releasing
here
this
you
on
sit looking at
PS4,
these chairs and some
Xbox One,
paintings.
and Steam again.
Really worth it.
So it's gonna have some extra content. One mission I'm stuck on is protect another assassin. Something about the
At
Templar
this
stealing
point,
the food
Stanley's
supplies.
obsession with this room bordered on creepy and reflected poorly on his overall personality. It's possible that this is why everyone left.
I don't remember that specific mission. I mean, I know the stuff about the food, but there were like 4 or 5 different food missions. Like they would branch off of each other with the storyline. Um, what is it that you can't do? You can't. You need to find the assassin, right, in a castle or something, right? He's being locked up, and you need to free him. This is yeah. So that mission. I mean, I did everything solo. I didn't do anything co-op. So if you're doing a co-op, obviously you need a microphone because you guys need to communicate. But there is the option to do the co-op mission solo. It's in the when you go to that whatever the prompt, or if you go in your start menu, you can do it solo there. You just need to have a good like you just need to look at the difficulty level because I think it's what stars or something like that, and kind of gauge the stars with the overall star rating of your loadout. So you'll notice when you go to your equipment, you have like your weapons, your outfit, your gauntlets, and your leggings or whatever. When you have everything equipped on the inventory menu, there should be an overall star rating for what you have. And if that is lower than the star rating for the missions, then you're pretty much screwed. You kind of need to have a higher equipment rating than the star rating for the quad missions. No, no, it's all good, Foxhound. I mean, it's um, I'm not streaming for anyone. I'm just playing the game myself, so whatever. If I can talk to you, then it's all good. But I would look up game facts. So look up like or not game facts. Just on Google. Just type in AC Unity best loadout. Usually, the best loadout obviously is items that have. I think it's 5 stars. It's like a golden stars rating. Usually, those are like the legendary weapons. So you definitely want to try to get as many of those as you can. But in order to get those, you either need to complete specific side missions, quests, or do like find them in loot chests or whatever. Um, just a lot of exploring, and so eventually you will, if you do get all this, like what I did. I did all the side stuff before the main campaign as much as I could. By the time I got to the main campaign, I was pretty much storming through it because my loadout was so good. Female assassin, I need to protect her, but I can't stealth kill because there's too many guardsmen. Yeah, so stealth kills in Unity, it's really iffy. So it's really more having your guns, like the gauntlet guns or whatever. Those are like usually one-hit kills or specific bombs you can get that just kill everyone within a radius. It's just usually just a matter of using those. So again, you can always, if you're having trouble with that mission, as long as you have the name of the mission itself, type it in on Google. And there are walkthroughs that can kind of give you a general idea of what you need to do to get the. And again, it's up to you if you're looking to do all the optional objectives too. That's what I did. I did full 100% sync. So obviously, if you're doing the optional uh, objectives, it is harder. In most cases, a lot harder. But by completing those, you are getting the maximum amount of rewards. So there's that to consider as well. Right. So going back to this game, Fox. Now this is
Stanley sat around waiting for more, but at last he'd had enough of the amazing room and took the first open door on his left to get back to business.
so this game is really quick. Like you're in a hallway and you need to pretty much find the end or whatever it is you need to do. But the thing of this is like a read your own adventure book. There is like you're at the end of a crossroads. So like for example, this guy's telling me to go on this door to my left to advance the story the way the game is intending it to. But there's another door here which leads me to an alternate path, which could be alternate endings as well. So it's you kind of make your decisions on the fly, and depending on what you do, that can branch out into like 3 different endings or 5 different endings, or it'll lead me back to this somehow. So it's I'm experimenting as much as I can to try to see how many endings I can get. It's interesting. In Unity, can you still assassinate 2 people at once? Yes, but it has to be an air assassination, and it's a skill. You need to unlock it. if you press the start menu, you go to your, there's a skills tab, and from there you need to buy those with creed points. So with the creed points that you unlock those by doing the campaign missions or doing leveling up. You need to spend that. So the double assassination and double air assassinations are skills you need to purchase. So you need to have creed points to get those. So you can't do it on automatically, unfortunately.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
So you know what? So I can go to the right or I can go up here. I went up here last time, but there's a second ending I didn't get from there. So let me do that.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley. Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself. Now, I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her.
Need to talk to my wife.
This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
Alright, so I haven't done this before. Yeah, so it's very interesting. It's a very quick game. At first, but because there's so many branching paths and alternate endings, it could take a while. But the narration is very tongue-in-cheek and very entertaining. So this used to be, originally this was a Half-Life 2 mod, but it ended up being so popular that it ended up making it its own game. So I need to go here.
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this, to reach out to her. If you can truly place your faith in another, then pick up the phone.
I gotta get that phone. But I also want to wait and see what the narrator says if I don't pick it up, because that might be an option too. Okay.
Oh, Stanley, is that you? Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now, I want you to come in and tell me all about your day.
Gotcha!
Wow.
Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to commit their life to you? I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something. Come inside. Let me show you what's really going on here.
I don't have a wife. Oy. We're 26.
Sorry, but you're in my story now.
Oh, damn. They just fucked it up. Alright. Have no choice.
This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
Good morning, employee 427. Press 3 on your keyboard.
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him, and every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature of his existence. Look at him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life. But in his mind, he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a
He's quite
reminder that
tongue-in-cheek.
none of
He's
it would
kind of
ever
like
happen to
GLaDOS in a way.
him. And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly.
Time with the boys.
So he went further. He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions, and down another was a game with a baby. And he called it the Stanley Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time.
The whole point of the game. Sorry, well, I need to, I will be right back. Something came up. I will be back a little later. Let me pause this.